Are you tired of the typical libraries with conventional music that makes you feel meh? Introducing Leerecs.com, the music website made for and by minds like you. Our team are lifelong musicians and producers in love with music. Search the Leerecs music catalogs and find music with guaranteed originality. Mark the difference with music of signature at Leerecs.com.
Never alone with you by my side. I keep a picture in my pocket till the day I die. And now I'm alone. I hear your distant call. A bottle in a short road. It's good company. You're good company.
This is so impressive. This is fantastic. A wonderful song. And if you saw it, not only listen to it, but also saw it, you will blow your mind, because this is only, all of this sound is coming out of only one person. Playing all the instruments at once. This is incredible. And we had Edgar Blood with us. It's a privilege. Hey, hi Edgar, how's it going?
How's it going? Yeah, it's Edgar Blood out in sunny California.
Fabulous. Okay, wonderful. Beautiful weather, right?
That's all right now. You know, it's getting kind of overcast, but last week it was 80 degrees and I was barbecuing, so we'll see what next weekend it has in store.
Wonderful. Look, this is really impressive. I mean, your proficiency with these instruments, and what kind of adjustments do you have to do? Just, take the floor, introduce yourself, tell us about your journey in your music, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it kind of explains itself in that I'm it's like a jack of all trades thing. I started playing guitar, when I was a little kid. I wanted to, pick up a guitar and start playing music that I liked, and then I kind of started writing my own stuff, started joining bands, and getting my feet wet with playing with other people. And then from there, I transitioned to playing drums, like on my own, and then being in bands as a drummer. And then from there, I was definitely inspired by a lot of other one-man bands that are out there. One of the first that I remember seeing was Dead Elvis and his One-Man Grave. It was awesome. Definitely got to check him out too. But yeah, I figured, I was like, well, I'm kind of good at drums and I'm kind of good at guitar, and try and throw it all together at the same time and try and sing over all of that at the same time. It's an interesting thing to do, but I can make my own schedule. That's the best part of it, is I can practice and play shows whenever I want. I don't have to depend on other people.
Right, gives you your independence, right?
Yeah.
But how do you, if would explain to some of the listeners, how do you adjust it, your, let's say, the drum set, right? Because you're sitting, and how do you do it? What's the compromise?
The compromise is definitely, I had to, maneuver the snare drum so that I could, hit it with my, I had to tilt the stand. And then I had to move, like, the hi-hats would normally be on, depending on if your dominant hand, you're left-handed or right-handed, you're always hitting the hats with that. So I had to, like, move the hat stand near my kick drum so I could hit both at the same time. And all these little things. I guess obviously the compromise is when you're playing drums, you're playing stuff with your feet, keeping time with a foot, hitting the kick drum with another foot, and you're doing all this stuff with your hands. So the complexity, there is a little bit of a drawback. You don't get to be as complex and drum fills or stuff like that, but I'm trying. It's definitely a learning curve to it. It's you get the kind of basics down, and then you get okay at the basics, and then you start trying to add things and changes here and there. And I guess it's kind of if you listen to my first album, from 2019, and then you listen to like my most recent album, I feel like there's a noticeable change a little bit. It's a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, sounds better.
Okay, we will have to check them both. But can you tell us the titles?
Oh yeah, so the first album I put out in 2019 is just self-titled, so it's Edgar Blood by Edgar Blood. Okay. And then the most recent album that I'm pretty, I'm happy with it. I'm really proud of it. It kind of came out of, I think everybody is in the same situation where the pandemic, it breeds a lot of creativity because you're kind of, for lack of a better term, you're kind of trapped. I was hanging out in my house and staying home and working from home, so I had a lot of more free time. And I had just come out with my second album not too much earlier than that. But Tall Tales came out October of last year. It's a very I tried to aim it in a little bit heavier. Trying to get into like a little bit more metal inspired territory, kind of leaning away from like kind of I originally started in a very like bluesy garage rock rooted kind of sound, and then I was like, oh well, I'm good at this, but I want to push it a little bit. I want to see, can I make these songs harder? Can I make the foot drums more complex, like we were saying? And then, yeah, I mean, I'm proud of it. It came out exactly how I wanted it to, and it was interesting because there's definitely kind of how do you explain it? It's got some songs that were written kind of during the tail end of the second album, and then there's songs that I wrote kind of during the pandemic where I was trying to push myself harder to write more complicated songs, or complex, not complicated, but complex. So it's funny because a lot of people will listen to Tall Tales. They came out last year, and they're like, oh, you got songs that sound very melodic and catchy, but then you have songs that are a little bit heavier and have like breakdowns and like crunchy riffs, and it's a little bit of a departure from where I started. But I like it. It's all part of the evolution. It's all about trying to push it harder, get heavier, get catchier, make everything to 11, all parts of it.
Awesome, yeah, definitely. I mean, this song we're listening to, Winds in the East, is really fantastic. If you wouldn't see you playing, you would, could be a band. So there's really no compromise that you can hear, and I love that because you are composed in a very intelligent way. The trade-offs of whatever you have to do is almost unnoticeable. Like you're doing the right thing for the song. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I don't think a lot of people take it for that value. I genuinely appreciate that comment because people are obviously very. I wouldn't say taken aback, but they're, the first thing they notice, obviously, it's you can't miss it, is that, it's one person, it's just me by myself. But I try to, I really try to dig into making the songs themselves, really good songs, at least to me, in my opinion, getting a song that sounds like a pleasing, it's catchy, can get stuck in your head, or it's, got heavy riffs that are memorable or anything like that. I really do pay attention a lot to my writing to try and make it what I'm happy with first. And then the one-man band thing kind of comes second. It's a means to a way, a means to a way. I want to do this because I like, utilizing the foot drums, and the kind of the spectacle of being one person doing it is definitely alluring, but I definitely never try and compromise the songwriting. I feel like the songwriting for me, it always comes first. It's always the first thing in mind. In my process when I'm making a song or making an album or any sort of composition, whether how it works into being a one-man band or not, it's almost not the case. I do the song first. I make the song the best it could possibly be, and then I go, okay, well, how does that translate to being a one-man band? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, look, the song is fantastic, regardless. And what are the things I wanted to ask you? So you're talking about the recording process, and I would like you to explain that. Number one, how do you go about recording? Like, how do you do it? Do you have your
sure,
self studio? but the real question in your case is, do you play it all at once? Because I would imagine if you were recording drums, you might be tempted to like do more stuff, right? So
and then So that's a very, very interesting observation, because I'm definitely always trying to push the envelope, try and make things harder. But I do know my limits, I guess you could say. Is I know, and you hit the nail right on the head, is if I'm doing it a certain way in the studio, which I just record at my own. I have my old home studio. I've collected gear and done all my stuff and my homework and my research. But it's definitely a tightrope. You got to make sure you're making the songs sound good and that fits within the context of the song. But you're totally right where, if I'm in the studio, it might be easier to say, oh, well, I can just cut a bajillion takes. I can, if I mess up, I can go back and redo it. But I definitely don't want to ever commit anything to tape that I wouldn't be able to pull off live. I don't want to do something so just outlandishly, complex, and then rubber meets the road. I'm like, okay, time to go play a show and not be able to pull it off. That's kind of almost a fear of mine, of being able to like making it so much more than it can be, to the point where I wouldn't be able to pull it off live. Because that's the tripod situation of it. Is you got the songwriting, you got the one-man band complexity aspect of it, and then the ability to do it live in person. If somebody comes to the show and they hear it, it's not going to sound like, oh, well, he made it way more complicated on the record. There's no way he's going to do that live. I definitely don't want anybody to come to a show and, expect one thing and then get another. So I always keep it within that mindset of being like, okay, I still need to be able to pull this off live. And, for like a 45 or an hour long set too. So it's super tiring. But, no, I throughout it at a year, it's kind of typical nowadays that you have an album cycle. So you come up with a concept and you get it all, you start writing it out. And then, I just set up everything in my little home studio and I just pound out, I always try my best to make it so that when I'm going in to record a song, it's already a song I can play just beginning to end flawlessly. I try to limit my my time when I'm recording to not, it's very easy with a home studio and in recording gear at home to be like, oh, I can take my time. I can work on this for, a couple of weeks, or I can work on this for a year if I wanted to. I try not to do that. I try to put those limits on myself, those constraints, because it's very easy to get caught up in perfection, I guess. It's sitting there and, recording a thing 100 times, like, okay, that's the take. That could take you a week, or that could take you months, and I definitely try not to do that.
I agree with you. I think it's a good idea to keep the reality and the truth of the moment, the phase where you wrote the songs. If it's
exactly.
It's tempting, like you were saying, to pursue perfection and take a long time to finish the album. But I don't know. I feel like it will over time lose sincerity and the reality of the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the... Exactly. That's one of my favorite things to do to myself is like limitations. I mean, it doesn't take anybody to realize that a very big inspiration, kind of where it all came from, was listening to lots of like the White Stripes and Jack White. It's very easy to kind of get into the same mindset of limitations where, I definitely I don't aim for perfection. There's definitely a sound that I'm going for that, if you polish it too much, it loses its authenticity. It loses its rawness. And that's where I like to live. I like to live in that very raw, in the moment, keeping things sincere. Exactly like you said. I mean, I live in that. I love that feeling. I love that, raw aspect of somebody just pouring it all out, hitting those things as hard as possible and playing as loud as possible. I love it.
Yeah, fantastic. And I also, it's a matter of, how do you say, it's a sensibility, I guess. Where is the limit? Where's that fine line? Where is, it achieves the type of the sound that you're going for, but at the same time is keeping the reality of it, right? And
exactly.
And the truth. Sometimes you take it too far in the studio, and then it's missing something. It's kind of missing the soul of it. So I love it. I love it.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
it's very cool.
Let me ask you this. Do you miss... So now that you're doing this, so you come from the world of being in bands and playing with others. Now you took the decision, I'm going to do it all by myself. And beyond reasons or circumstances, do you miss it at all? Do you see this like your future? Are you ever thinking like, I would like to play with others? What is that?
That's a very interesting. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Do I miss it? Do I miss being in full bands with multiple people covering? The first thing I think of is like, covering their ground. They're kind of responsible for their contribution to the band, and it always kind of ends up being a situation where, since they're responsible for their contribution, you almost. Not you, but and if you're a guitar player, you're not sitting there worried about the drummer 24/7 because you're like, well, he's got that covered. If he's a good drummer, if he's responsible, it's kind of like, well, I don't have to worry about that. Well, in this, I have to worry about all of it. And sometimes I've gotten called out once or twice to be like, you're a control freak, is what it is. You want to have control over everything. And maybe not. When I was in the band that I was in, in one way or another, ended up being kind of a leader. I was writing and playing guitar in most bands that I was in. If I wasn't playing drums, I was always kind of the ringleader. And so I was like, well, what better way to do this than to just do all of it? Just do it all by myself. Funny enough, there's a great quote by another near and dear one-man band, Bob Log III, in a documentary, a one-man band documentary. And he says, the concept really is of a one-man band is, loving music so much that you want to do all of it. You want to do every part of it. Nice. Loving and being so indebted to the music, and just music in and of itself as an appreciator, as a listener, and a maker. It's loving music so much that you got to do all of it, and you want to do as much as you can.
Nice.
So no, I don't miss it.
Okay, so you don't miss. Fantastic. Look, so you're playing live. Are you playing live these days?
Yeah. Well, it's picking up. I think everybody's in the same boat right now, where we're just getting what we can. I'm definitely not. Because when I mean one man band, I mean I'm managing it, I'm booking it, I'm doing the social media, I'm doing every aspect that would be across multiple people as far as a band or kind of a faction of a product, like a brand or anything. Like, I'm doing all of it, man. I'm doing every facet of it. So yeah, no, I'm a little slow right now on going out of my way to be a hardcore booking. So I'm not playing as many shows right now. Obviously in California we have our limits and our limitations because of a certain pandemic, but things are loosening up. I got some shows lined up. I got one in June at Winter's Tavern, which is a phenomenal venue. They really are about music. They just love getting local bands in there and getting them on stage, letting them play no matter what. And that's definitely the kind of vibe that I love living in that too. Just, the scene, music scenes and stuff. So I can't wait. I can't wait to play more, really.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think, and it's definitely, I'm sure it's going to be a show to see you playing all the instruments at once, and just for the fun of seeing that, right? And on top of the wonderful music, obviously. So, all right. Well, again, thank you so much. Giving us some
Absolutely.
Of your time, and really appreciative for it. Really, your music is great. And let me ask you this: so, what's the perfect future that you can think for yourself for your music?
The perfect future. Probably. I mean, you know, I am a family man, and I have a job and stuff like that, and I'm definitely a weekend warrior, and I live in that, and I enjoy it. It allows me, you know, the music scene and the music industry as a whole right now it's so it's self. You have to be self motivated. You have to be ready to do it and ready to put in the work. And the cool thing is you will get as far as much work you want to put in, and I'm definitely at the point where I want to put in more work. You know, I want to see how far this thing can go. I'll ride it out till the wheels fall off, as they say.
Nice. Well, you know, all the best with that, and best luck. And
absolutely, thank you.
Of course. And before we go, what type of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh man. I would say slow down is the weirdest thing. If I were to find myself 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would just go to myself and give myself a hug and say, hey, you know what? Slow down. I lived really fast when I was younger and tried to do as much as possible, thinking I had some sort of short amount of time to do it. So I was just constantly going. And I still am to some degree. Yeah, slow down. Enjoy it. Enjoy the moment and live in it. Don't worry about, you know, anything that, unless it's obviously something crazy, but, you know, live in it and enjoy it. Remember it. Be present.
Be present.
Definitely.
That's fantastic advice. Okay. Winds in the East. And this is Edgar Blood. And it was really great speaking with you, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the best. And we're going to enjoy a little bit more of your song, Winds in the East. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now alone, you're breathing down my neck. So cold, I make my hair stand on edge. And now alone, I feel you hold my hand. A ghost in a sharp night. It's good company, you're good company. And when you're alone, I'll be there with you soon. Leaving it the void keeps me from you. When you're alone, I'll be there with you soon. Leaving in the void keeps me from you. Keeps me from you. It's cold and it's
Are you
gray.
tired of the typical libraries with conventional music that makes you feel meh? Introducing Leerecs.com, the music website made for and by minds like you. Our team are lifelong musicians and producers in love with music. Search the Leerecs music catalogs and find music with guaranteed originality. Mark the difference with music of signature at Leerecs.com.